Kathy, I didn't realize that was you guys.
That's how many people are showing up. So we have, well, no, I think Ron will be here, right? Then we have three. Maybe not. Maybe Ron doesn't want to show up because he doesn't want to spend $33,000 on the PA system. So he doesn't want his name. So he doesn't want to put his name on. Oh, gotcha. Well. Yeah. I have my double, sorry, my other shirt on. But again,
Don't forget. Gary. I was saying Gary.
Oh,
I said, hi, Gary. Hi.
they rhyme. Weird. Guys, this has been one of the most. Next time. We got 3 minutes in the intro.
You scared me. Okay, whatever. Yeah, that's what
Guys, I was really excited to be first live with you. And granted, only 2 of you showed up to support me, and I appreciate you too. I really do. I really appreciate you too. I do. Yeah. But we're better at this. So, no. We're not gonna show. We're not gonna show. I would want no part of this.
We know.
Well, I will.
Call August 27th council meeting order. Roll call.
Mr. Roberts.
Here.
Mr. Longmaker.
Here.
Mr. Lewis. Here. Mr. Connors.
We do have a quorum tonight, so I'd like to welcome everybody to the city council meeting and ask everybody to please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Motion to approve, and a second, roll call.
Mr. Longmaker. Mr. Lewis. Mr. Connors. Motion is carried 3-0.
Declaration of council meetings declared, any conflict of communications through that closure decision. Hearing and seeing none. Public comments. Members of the public are welcome to present their items of concern to the city council. The city council will not discuss or debate these items, nor will the city council make decisions
on items presented during this time. Speakers should address their comments to the city council only, not members of the audience or staff. Persons wishing to address the city council must sign up before the meeting begins. Speakers must provide their name and address for the record and are limited to 3 minutes. The maximum time for all speakers will be a total of 30 minutes. Justin, do you have
I have 6. My first one is Clara White.
Claire?
Okay, I've been researching data centers and briefly what I have found. I watched a national TV meeting on the Federal Environment Protection Agency. 23 governors pledged to freeze electricity rates. Data centers will have their own electric grids, and excessive electricity will be available for the communities. They have a water loop system that recycles the water, and they use increasing technology and walls to decrease the noise. Teachers in Louisiana to get a $50,000 bonus check from revenue brought in by the data center there. Research. Louisiana has parishes instead of counties, and yes, the data center in Richland Parish brought in revenues that certified teachers will be receiving a $50,935 bonus check this year, and support staff a $17,472 bonus check. Taxes down, electric rates down 37% cheaper than national average. It created 7,500 jobs to build and 1,000 jobs to maintain. Training residents for jobs in technology, electricity, and water systems, and college offering courses also. Household income rising, supporting local retail. Richland was chosen for its infrastructure and an eager community to partner. Research. The MAC Digital Solutions that wants to build in Edgerton. The owner has been in construction since 1980. Military and industrial, and now data center construction. He has worked with Elon Musk for SpaceX and AI. There's a lot of negative propaganda. China wants to lead in technology, and whoever leads in technology will lead the world also in the military. China owns 384,000 acres of U.S. land. I grew up by Fort Raleigh, Kansas, home of the Big Red One, first ever tree on call. China owns 160 acres, 1.5 miles from the military base. It's supposed to be a seed company and nursery. I hate to think of what China might be putting in our food cities. And my cousin was stationed at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana. It's a major training base for the military, for the Air Force, and they surveil the whole west coast of the United States for national security. And a Chinese American with ties to Beijing owns 2 golf courses near the air base. One 2 miles north and one 2 miles south. So it's food for thought. We've got to win the technology race. And I always get upset when I hear about communism because my great-grandmother and my great-uncle, although they own their own farm in the old country, they starved to death when the communist government took over. Family here wanted to send money, but Grandma said no, the government would get it. So thank you for your time. I probably have 3 or 4 more chapters I could tell you about my research.
You're always welcome to come back. Claire, can you give your address for the record, please?
Oh, yes, it's the 505 West Martin. It's on the record when I signed in.
Okay, thank you.
I've been here 22 years almost.
All right, thanks.
Next, I have Charlie Troutner.
Hello, everybody. I haven't given an update progress report on the museum recently, so I'd like to do that. Things are going very well. We're getting a lot of visitors. They've all been very gracious, very interesting, very interested in what we have over there. And the air conditioning unit is wonderful, both upstairs and down. I've been spending a lot of time in the upstairs the last few days. Very nice working conditions up there. I'm still waiting for the little elves to come around and get some of the things done, but that's okay because I love doing it. So, but things are going very well. So I would like to thank anyone responsible for the air conditioning unit. Thank you very much because it's such a nice environment now. it's just wonderful. And not just for me, but for our visitors. When they come in, walk up the sidewalk in that terrible heat right now, it's nice they have a real nice place. One of the first things a lot of them say, oh, it's so nice in here. So I tell them, yes, we've got a brand new unit, thanks to the city. I want to thank the facilities department, Levi and his staff. They've been wonderful. I don't think I've seen the outside look any better in a long, long time. They've been very dedicated. They got right on the air conditioning issue, really appreciate it. So things are going very well, and I encourage everyone, all of you, to come and visit. I've set up a new exhibit. I've added some things to existing exhibits. I think it's safe to say it's a bit of a different museum than it was, which is good. So just want to thank everyone for everything. I'm really excited about how things are going. And I encourage everyone in the audience as well to please come and visit. Thank you.
Thanks, Charlie, can you give your address for the record?
707 West Nelson, number 215 in Edgerton.
Perfect, thank you. Next I have Henry, is it Johns?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, I wanted to come in this evening just to introduce myself to you. I'm Henry Johns. I'm running for the 5th House District seat for the Kansas Legislature. I've been going around the district, every community, visiting city council meetings, county commission meetings, school board meetings, trying to learn more about the district. Edgerton, just like my area in Douglas County, was annexed into this district. So it's something new to go around, and I've already put 10,000 miles on my vehicle trying to traverse this district from Osawatomie all the way up through here, part of Spring Hill, part of Gardner, over across to Baldwin City, all the way to the Shawnee County line, and down into Franklin County, around Wellsville. So it's a big district, there's a lot of people. One of the things I admired when I came in and saw your agenda and everything tonight, and looked at it, was the fact that you give time to the people to come in and address the council. And I think that's absolutely outstanding, considering some communities don't do that or force people to wait until the very end of the meeting after the council's gone home before they can get up and express their opinions. As a veteran, when I took my oath to the Constitution, which never expired, First Amendment means a lot to me. The right of the people to get up and speak their minds, the right of the people to petition their government for redress, are core values. I put Kansas first and the people of Kansas first. And I really appreciate being here tonight. I appreciate you giving me the minute to come up and introduce myself, and would love to have longer conversations with you about Edgerton and the future of Edgerton. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johns, did you give your address at the beginning?
I did.
Okay, thank you.
I got it. Next I have Carrie Schmidt.
All right, my name is Carrie Schmidt, and my address is on the first page of the petition lawsuit. I just am here today to let everyone know I had a really good day. I had someone reach out to me last week for an interview, and this person is bringing a spotlight to all the hyperscale data centers across the country. Super nice, down to earth, smart lady. Maybe some of you guys know who I'm talking about. Erin Brockovich. Sure do. Yeah. Sure do. She was asking Kim and I about DeMac's hyperscale data center and what's going on in Edgerton. She was very interested in everything we had to say about how you are suing Kim and me because you want to take away the voice of the people by trying to keep the petition question off of the ballot. Anyhow, that's all I wanted to share with you guys, that Erin Brockovich has her eyes on you, okay? That's a nice title. Is that, that's how we act? My time isn't up.
Carrie, address comments to us.
Okay, except for I will have people. But I just want to let everybody know that, so, all right, thank you.
Next I have William L. Falls.
Good evening, William LaFalls, 516 West 4th Street, Edgerton, Kansas. The first thing I want to address is the Pledge of Allegiance. When I first started coming to the meetings, I was excited because we're doing that. A lot of communities don't. But it disheartens me that we have a couple veterans up there on the dais that don't know how to do it properly. So if you're not going to stand with the proper posture and say it in the correct manner, then don't say it at all. That's just constructive criticism. Be professional. Because I know you have 2 Army vets at least up there. So just be aware of that. I am here as a hearing impaired individual to address us getting in a microphone and camera system, which I see is on the agenda for tonight. The question I have are the figures are astronomically high in my opinion. You know, between those 2 costs, and the fact that I just learned that the city paid, what, $22,000 to Strawberry Landscaping out of Lewisburg. You guys are spending money like drunken sailors in a brothel. No, we can do it cheaper. Absolutely cheaper. These numbers are not acceptable. We want a sound system, but how is the bidding process being vetted? Is it just somebody shows up and say we're going to do it? I mean, how come we don't have locals in Edgerton cutting the 42 acres of grass? Is that something our city cannot do? Are you all being paid too much? Maybe we gotta cut your salaries to cover those shortfalls. You know, I'm telling you that there's just way too much money being spent for things like that. So the next thing I wanna talk about, no, I'm just gonna stay focused in on that. We need the microphones. We need unedited live streaming, but not for the cost where we have here, almost $70-some thousand. That's just ridiculously high. Anyway, thank you.
Last I have Kim Twinkie.
Well,
My name is Kim Twenty. I live at 705 West Marywood Lane. I also wanted to address the sound system that's on the agenda tonight. I have to agree with my fellow Edgertonian, William. You know, we've been fighting for a sound system so that everybody can hear what's being said, but, you know, agreement for $33,000, that's ridiculous. You know, is there, can you not go and bid a few places, look for something that is reasonable? I mean, you can get a decent professional level sound system for $2,000. You can live stream for free. It doesn't cost that much. Or for, you know, get a nice professional camera for $1,000 and live stream with free software using YouTube. I'm not understanding this. Why are we spending money? I have had representatives, I've overheard state representatives say, I have never seen a city who spends like Edgerton. We're not that big. Why am I hearing from government representatives that we spend money so ridiculously? It's insane. And then our taxes are going up 41% next year. So why am I having to pay higher taxes so you guys can spend ridiculous amounts of money on a PA system that probably doesn't need to cost that much? So I would just like to address the city council to be mindful of how much things could cost so that the citizens of Edgerton don't end up having to take the fall in the long run. Thank you.
That was the last one.
Item 7 is presentation by staff and Alfred Vinish and Company of a pavement management plan, including an update pavement condition index PCI.
evening, Mayor, good evening, Council. And so tonight, we're here to report on the project that we started late last year for the roadway system PCI. And so PCI is Pavement Condition Index. And so first, and we do have benefit here, they're gonna come up here later in the presentation, just to give a quick summary at the end. However, with the grant that we won, we were able to then get PCI, which is a condition index of all the roadways, as well as the software for that to load it in order for us to do data analytics on either budget scenarios and different things for maintaining the system. And so the purpose of PCI, we want to make sure that we know what is needed at certain levels within a deterioration curve. And so roadways deteriorate at a different curve, different amounts throughout the life of a pavement, as we've talked about historically. And so PCI is a score that's from 0 to 100. And we have done PCI now a third time. We've generally done it on a 5-year rotation, so we did 2015, 2020, 2025. And now these are the results from that effort. You'll see in 2020 that we had a system citywide PCI at 82.7. And so the things that were introduced in 2020 was an annual public works operation program, the street preservation program. We further have projects in our CIP, and then there's also development. So as new roads are built, those get put in at 100 PCI. So those are the 4 mechanisms in which the PCI will improve within a system. There we go. And so up to how we got here to this date, I'm gonna have Trey talk a little about the history of how we've gotten here.
Okay, so since 2014, we've done kind of a whole host street preservation program as it relates to, well, really the 2014 to about 2019 phase of our street preservation program was the push to zero. So at that point, we did a surface treatment on every section of roadway to give us that baseline ability to do our PCI scan in 2020. So in that 2019 or 2014 to 2019 area, we had chip seal UBAS, some mill and overlay. The flood happened, so we got a lot of mill and overlay at that point, right? And then from 2019 to 2025 now, we've done several other projects. A lot of the stuff that happened on this map related to new construction, cars projects. We've got new build down south in the Dwyer area. So all of those new reconstruction projects helped to bring that roadway from a PCI of whatever it was to about 100. Then we have LBKC, of course, the development of roadways out there related to our development of LBKC. That all is predominantly concrete roadway, which has a different lifespan than what our traditional asphalt has here in town. And as you can see, all these roadways really related to projects as traditional stuff. So what is PCI? Dan alluded to score of 0 to 100. Really, it's very poor, well, failed sections of roadway from 0 to 40, which we're lumping as very poor. We currently don't have failed or serious, but we do have all the rest of them. So we have poor, fair, good, and excellent. So those rankings are based on what stresses are on the roadways. So we have block cracking, you have potholes, you have ride quality. All that goes into the matrix to give us a ranking for each section of roadway. So that data is collected was collected using LiDAR.
Yes.
Correct. Okay. So LiDAR, and then some 3D imagery and stuff like that. So it scanned the entire network of roadway that we have and gave us our new understanding of what a PCI is, which is an 86. So if you think back to what we had on our previous slide of very poor to excellent, the excellent category is what our roadway network is. So all the work that we've done up until this point has got us to our PCI 86. So every CIP project, every all of that stuff, all that investment that we've made has created a roadway network that's in an excellent condition. Here is Second Street. So on the left-hand side, you have
now, as we get into what our existing network is, this is the citywide condition map. You'll see the varying, the index showing the different categories. And so it's important that while we have a system-wide score of 86, when you look at the industrial zone where the roadways are concrete with a different life cycle than typical asphalt, the industrial zone is PCI of 91. Those roads are anywhere from 15 years old or less, and they're made out of concrete, which makes a big difference as far as the typical decay curve. And so the residential zone is at 79. And so you look at these two different areas, and it's important to keep in mind asphalt versus concrete, the nature of the traffic, but the scoring is worth noting in the residential section at 79, while the industrial zone being 90. Then we look at what makes up the effort that we put into it. And so we have street preservation, that is things like chip seal, UBAS, crack sealing. Some of the mill and overlay projects would fall under our street preservation. Currently, our street preservation budget has been around $145,000, $148,000 a year. And then you go to CIP road work, where, like, for example, the grade separation project in around the 2020 time frame, put a significant amount of roadways in at 100 PCI. And so that was primarily for public safety reasons. But so in CIP road work, some mill and overlay work will be a CIP project, but reconstruction would elevate to CIP road work every time. And then in street preservation, you have some of those smaller maintenance activities that when we had that march to zero in 2014 to about 2018 to 2019, those are the methods that we applied. 2019 being one of the first reconstructions that we've had in many years that we did to a residential part of town. And so this is just the software that we have as part of the project and the grant that we wanted to do this project. This is a glimpse of what it is. And so this is a zoomed in section. That is a segment of roadway there in the cyan color that was selected. It's 2nd Street going north of Nelson. And it just shows the information, the link, some of the different pieces, the width of the roadway, the condition of the roadway, and then the software has a decision matrix built into it to help us with recommendations for what maintenance activity is ready for that segment of roadway and when. And then with some of the costs associated to that, for construction costs. And so this is just a glimpse of the tool that we now have the ability to leverage to help us make decisions based as the data changes from degradation year after year. And so our average PCI per functional class is, so some of our roadways are major collectors, some are minor collectors, and some are residential. You'll notice our PCIs don't vary drastically between the two. The important thing to note is as a community grows and we start to have roads like arterials, like the major thoroughfares through some of our neighboring jurisdictions, as we start to have those, there are situations where those roadways have different target zones or target PCIs than residential roadways. And so eventually functional class will pour into the decision for where you need to maintain them at a different pace and different tool set. Right now, ours are all very similar, and they fall within the same recommendation of the tools to use to keep PCI to hit our target zone. This is another piece from that software, the budget tool. So in this project, we really asked 3 questions. What happens if we stay with the same financial investment today? What happens if we want to maintain our current PCI? And then what is something that happens in the middle? And so these are the 3 different scenarios. So that top one shows the average investment of $147,000 per year. You'll see if you look out over a 10-year span, that change will be a -30 to your system-wide PCI. That means if we do nothing but our annual preservation amount, the PCI will degrade to a 56. Then if you look at the investment for $500,000 per year, that increases our ability to do higher mileage. That will have a decrease of 24 PCI, which will put it at I think it's a 62. And then if you look at, in order to maintain the PCI, that investment is extremely high at $1.8 million per year, and then you would have no degradation by design through this budget tool. We knew that 86 is not a realistic expectation to stay consistent at, but we wanted those 3 questions. Those are the kind of scenarios that we can run through the tool. And this is another glimpse to show us that. to where we're able to put some scenarios. If we take a segment of roadway, we have different recommendations from the tool to help us understand what is needed to hit the target PCI within a scenario. It then will give us some of this information for us as a data crunch to see if it elevates to something as a recommendation. So we can, and later on, we're asking for consensus from council tonight on general direction, so we can then build the CIP based on the general consensus. And we will run that through this tool to help us know which segments, which years, which tool to apply for maintaining that road section. And so what we're asking tonight is just the awareness of the current network condition with a shared understanding of the three funding paths and their trade-offs. We're not looking for locking in a target PCI. We're gonna ask for general consensus or range. And then we're not looking for final budget commitments. We're just looking for a recommendation on a model. And so I'll show those to you. And so we have two different options. This is where I'm definitely asking council for their consensus. The top one, scenario A, for this example, we chose the maintaining the 86, just so we have some numbers to put into the story. So in that scenario A is very similar to the model in which we've done it, where you have a street preservation of around 147,000 per year. This one shows 196,000. And then sporadically, when projects and roadways necessitate it, we spike with a reconstruction project, and we ask for the funding to do the reconstruction project, and then we go back to street preservation every year, elevate something in the CIP through mill and overlay or reconstruction, and that's very similar to like you would see 2019 street recon, 2nd Street, is that scenario A. And so that is one model. The other model is the steady investment approach, where you take your target PCI, set a number in order to get to that for the dollars. This example was the 18 million. Then you spread that out over 10 years, and that's for the investment that is needed annually in order to reach that goal. Then staff would then present what that 1.8 million every year does in order to hit the target for the PCI that was set by council. And so generally today, we are asking for a consensus of which version you would like to see us build the CIP around. And helps with that conversation is this next one, is setting a target PCI for the system. And so right now we're at 86. To maintain that is an amount that's around 1.8 million per year. Then if we, like say we're good, we're still in the section of good, which is 71 to 85, then you can allow some of the degradation to occur while maintaining some of the roadways in order to keep it, and you set a target of a range, and say we set it from 72 to 76. Then you can let it get to that point, maybe just below it, and then the next year is a reconstruction that will bring you back into that range. And so this is a general consensus that we need council to set tonight, so we can then build a scenario to then frame our CIP around to see one, affordability, two, the realistic impact to the system, because as we have learned, the road simply just take an investment to stay at a quality in which conveys traffic well. And we have seen that by the investment that the city has made to this point. And so the first question for council would be, what system PCI range would you like to target? And with that, I will stand for questions for you guys for a second as you discuss that.
Questions or comments? No, thank you.
One of the slides talked about like comparable cities and like this is a traditional PCI. I'm sorry, I can't hear
So
you.
we did not have the,
Right.
there was some conversation about what is an industry accepted norm for the number, and generally the target is in that good category. We don't necessarily have what other communities are targeting, but that good category is what a lot of people shoot for and try to attain, and then make the projects to try to hit that. We are fortunate to, or compared to what we know of the average communities around us, we are higher at the moment. But knowing that as our roadways grow and our systems age, that degradation is going to occur. So generally, in that good category would be the recommendation from staff, probably dialed in to a series of numbers between 70 and 77.
So how do grants fit into all this for the road reconstruction?
Sure. So the way grants fit into this, it's really a strategy about how do we get the dollar to go farther. And so right now, every roadway that we have, we exhaust every opportunity to stretch the dollar. The county has a CARS program that we participate in. There's a method in which the dollars are divided up amongst the applicants. And so we do our best to apply by those rules. So there are years that we don't apply in order to maintain the way that system is set up from the county perspective. And that's a great bucket of money for us to extend the dollar that we have invested here. There's other categories at the state level through MARC. And so it's really a strategy about, right now, we're talking about the dollars to simply maintain. If we can stretch those out to make the less dollars coming from Edgerton, the better off we are. And we have a really strong strategy around that through city dollars, county dollars, as well as state dollars.
That's not figured in.
It is not in the
It's in the previous.
This is really like, you're trying to, it's sort of like trying to identify a target GPA that you might want your student to have. This is sort of like the grading system for roads. So really what staff's asking for council to think about is what's our target grade point average, or what's our target grade PCI score that we want the roadway network to have, so that then we can utilize the tools, all of the research that they did in scoring the roads and looking at the type of condition of the roads in order to figure out build the budget to keep that score. So PCI is really about targeting a score, do we want to be the 3.0 kid? Do we want to be a B average kid? Do we want to be a B plus kid? Right, so you're trying to figure out what is our target score that we want.
Well, it wouldn't make sense to me to let it go downhill. But at the same time, I don't want to spend more money than that. So I guess that's where you're going.
It is finding the Goldilocks version.
So from a budget perspective, where do we find this revenue to even increase the budget that we currently set annually? Where would that money come from?
So that's part of our job, is that if you say to us, our goal would be to set the PCI score or keep the PCI score at, I'm just gonna pick a number, 75 or 75 to 80, then our job, this is why we're doing it ahead of CIP, is to go back and look for opportunities and use the tool to say, okay, if we want to keep that, then here's how that would happen, right? Here's the roadways that would need to get this type of treatment. I'm taking all your words, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're definitely right. I agree with you.
So this road would need this kind of treatment in this year, and maybe it needs milling overlay, but then we have work to do to pull together that budget and bring forward a budget that would meet that for you.
I just don't have like a reference point of like, what does degradation look like at 62 versus 59 versus 70? Like, how do I know what it looks like at 58 versus 70?
Sure. And so if we look at just those 5 categories that are up there today, generally the degradation curve for a roadway starts with that first, as soon as it's 100, it dips within the first 5 years to the tune of 3 to 5 points. A quick little dip, and then it's steady for the tune of about 10 to 15 years, because then it's a bell curve that drops like this. And so the excellent category is before it takes that vertical dive. The good category is in that first section where it starts to elbow to turn south for those 15 points. That in an asphalt roadway has a life of anywhere from 30 years, 40 years. And so once they hit the fair is when they have a steeper degradation, and they degrade faster once you get into the fair category. And then as it gets steeper, the dollars are more expensive in order to maintain them at that level. And then as they get to fair board, they bottom out and they're just fading.
Previously, when council had conversations, we weren't talking about numbers, that council as a whole had said, we don't want to get to the vertical drop, right? We want to keep within the excellent good area, because it becomes drastically more expensive as you get to that vertical drop.
And if consensus is provided tonight, we go back, find out the method of affordability. We can bring back some deterioration curves. You can have those at the same time to say, okay, if this is a $1 investment, doing it here is a $1.50 investment versus an $8 investment.
I guess I just want like, in my head, I almost want like an example. So if you're telling me that like one of the roads in the town is a 59 and one of them's a 72, I literally want show me on a map, but I need to.
Well, there's a room where we can, so we got pictures.
Yeah.
So the roadway on
But I
the
wanna
left,
see what that looks like. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So Second Street,
this one on the left here scored around, I think this segment was around the mid-50s to maybe 55 to 60 roughly. Obviously, the one on the right is 100. And so you'll see like the nature of what goes into PCI are surface level distresses. You see the pavement off to the side, that multicolor, that implies a distress. You can see those vertical striations in the picture. Those imply cracking that is more than surface level. Now, I'm definitely looking at a picture. So those are the kind of things that PCI looks at a much granular level. I'm trying to remember what's a crack versus what is an application of a chip seal. So, but those are the examples of what goes into a 50. So we can get you some sample pictures. Whatever the consensus we leave with tonight, we can bring back examples of what a 30, 40, 50, that kind of thing, and bring those back in the system that we have and show you those for sure.
I remember on the old road there, and that looks pretty good if you ask me.
Right.
When you drive down that road, you didn't feel anything like what that looks.
That's
Sure.
right, that's right.
Like, you know, had waves and dips.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the categories you talked about, like drivability, that slide had some categories that we talked about, drivability and cracking and.
Picture does all
um,
those, like.
Does look bad.
Yeah, it does. The picture, like, you're like, oh, that's not terrible, 55, 60.
Yeah.
But then you know, like, driving down it for years, at least I do, it was not good.
Right, it was, like Edgewood is a great example, like, when we first talked about Second Street, Edgewood was not included, right, because it was, fine, like, probably, I
It
don't
was
know.
in the low end, but it's probably like right at the line of good and fair
Right,
and quickly deteriorated.
and then we had a winter, and we came out of winter, and it had whoosh off the cliff.
So if you, 3rd Street from Edgewood to the south, I believe we're about to head or no, that 3rd Street section, here in this map is yellow, which puts it at a 56 to 70. And so if you drive 3rd Street from south of Edgewood, you'll see a series of alligator cracking, especially in the eyebrow that comes off to the right or to the east. You'll see a lot of alligator cracking, a lot of the, like the curb is falling off the edges. And that's what goes into something that's in the fair category. So we can get some of those examples from our network to help know what each of those categories are.
Yeah, I think, like, for me, anyway, I don't know about anybody else, but for me, I would like to try to compare apples from a visual standpoint, I think mostly apples to apples. So I don't wanna pick the wrong score essentially, right? So I don't know what I don't know, and I wanna know more about what it looks like at each kind of level, even if it's at 10
Sure.
increments or whatever.
One thing to keep in mind as well is say, like our PCI average is 86. If I have a roadway, which I think there is one in the very poor section, which is the eyebrow of 3rd Street off to the east, that shows is very poor. That doesn't mean we do nothing to that roadway because our PCI is, say you set it at 86 and that's where we're at today. That doesn't mean we do nothing to that. That means we still have to have an investment to go into that roadway because individually, it still needs treatment. And a model that needs to be done to minimize the expenditure, although once it's red, that expenditure is more expensive no matter what. And so that does come into play of knowing what an example of each of them are. But even if our system-wide PCI set a target of 86, we still need to do something to the things that are red and degrading out of the yellow. And so that doesn't necessarily change the need on some of the roadways that are declining. It just might impact frequency in that regard.
Correct. Well, and urgency and setting.
Yep.
You know, so you're working on the worst ones first, like, I get the process of it, I
And-
just wanna make sure I understand
rewind
the
to,
levels.
so 2020, when we started the new preservation program, we talked about the degradation curve quite a bit. One of the things that we talked about at length was when the curve drops off, there's a PCI that is preferable to do preventive maintenance to help to help keep that PCI level at whatever it is. So at 70, we've really taken that approach, and that's where we do a chip seal, and that's where we do all these things. So it helps it bring that network back up because it's increasing that overall section.
And the other part I think I wanna know is, let's say we example, we set at 72. What is the expansion of the life of that road when we maintain it
So the real answer to that is based on the maintenance that's recommended on a roadway at 72 versus 80. So if you look at like a chip seal that we're about to do, you do those in roadways typically that are in those good categories to keep them good. So you spend the $1 to $3 a cubic yard to keep them good. And so its extension of life is in single digit years, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And then you take something, let's say it's at 70, where you can do a UBAS application or a small mill and overlay. That can turn a roadway that's about a 56. If you do a full depth mill and overlay, you can bring it back to an 85 because of the nature of the rehab. And that will probably add 7 to 15 years ballpark, depending upon how much of the base repair you get done and how much of that reflects through versus what doesn't. And so a lot of that depends more on the tool than what the number is. But something that's in the 70s would have a UBAS, you could chip seal it and it'll get a 72 to a 76, and that would extend it by 3 years. And so we would have a series of a toolbox to help us prolong life. So where, some people use the phrase perpetual pavement, where if I keep doing the maintenance activity, if you keep doing them in theory, you could never have to replace the street. That's not necessarily true, never, but you can prolong the life significantly if you do the lower cost roads more often. But there is a limit to how many times you can do them in a row.
So in the process, do you wait until a road falls into fair and then bring it up, or wait till it falls before? And then, I think what I'm looking for is the most efficient use of our money.
So the answer to the most efficient use of the money is to spend it as often as you can when it's the lowest unit cost, which is going to be those tools like chip seal, where they're that $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 a square yard or cubic yard. For those to keep it in the good or excellent category. Then there's like, because a deterioration curve is like this. When you're like here, there are still roadways, because if you look at our map, I mean, they're all over the board. Our average is 86, but we have some that are yellow now. And so if you remember when we did the street reconstruction, once we knew they were already towards that lower end of the yellow, we stopped doing heavy maintenance because we knew in 1 to 2 years we were going to reconstruct them. And so there's a time in which you do the minimal maintenance because you're going to invest in the costly fix. But you want to do as many of those, like our tools are really in 4 categories. The lower cost ones that extend 1, 3, 5 years, kind of 2 different tiers on mid-level, and then full-on reconstruction. And so you want to do as many of these lower cost and mid-level costs as you can until you can't repeat them, to where if you're doing that because of just simple affordability, you're letting some of these get to that point because you're balancing the whole system. But the answer of the most efficient is to keep spending the ones in these top 2 tool categories. But because of the way our system is spread out, we will have to be spending in all 4 categories through a 5-10 year plan.
So how does all that efficiency fit into the selection of the 3 proposals?
3 proposals, I understand that question.
Yeah, the scenarios.
Oh, okay, so the 2 scenarios here?
Yeah, the 2.
So, for example, the way we do it now is that.
What saves us the most money? Long run, can you calculate that?
I
Impossible.
mean, I have to to answer that, I have to spend some time in the tool. You look at the model the way we've done it. Let's look at scenario A, that 150, this has $200,000 a year. That kind of work helps me do the upper 2 on an annual basis. That chip seal, some UBAS, you can get in some of the other tools in those tiers, micro seal, there's a bunch of them. And then when roads are no longer equal, like they will not receive those levels, which is what we've done, then we put together a plan to do a big roadway improvement, like these ones in orange, street reconstruction. That helps us then bring those up, so I can then start doing the annual dollars. So I don't have an answer without spending some time with it.
So I think to Councilmember Tice's question, if you go back, this one is the same exact number. So if you look at the number totals on the right, this is the same, they're spending the exact
But
same.
this is it's
just
based on a PCI.
based on a PCI. If you go back to the one that talks about, that had 3 choices.
Oh, I got you. Scenarios, yes, sorry about that.
Yeah, so, like that one was just simply, do you wanna spend the same money all the time? Or do we want to allow for the normal, program like we have today and then spike it? This is what you were asking, is about the difference of, because those are very different numbers of investment, right? So when we asked them, what happens if we spend just the amount we're spending right now, right? Which over the 10 years then is like 1.3, right, Cam?
Yes.
It's really small on my screen. That means a change in the PCI all the way down to 56. And at the other end of the spectrum is if we maintain the 86 is what we have today, then you have to spend almost 1.9 annually. That's a large difference between 1.9 and 147,000. So what we were trying to help get consensus on is what number, like what target range. I think our recommendation will be a range for PCI would council want to work towards, because then we can use the tool to try and work towards a budget that would accomplish that.
So can we have a scenario where if the recommendation from staff is say 70, whatever,
Sure.
42, whatever, what is that? Because at 62, it's 500,000 a year, so what does 72 look like?
Yeah,
We'd have to
we'd
build
have to
that
plug,
right now.
Okay.
yeah.
But the one thing to touch into what Ron asked, if you look at the change in your PCI, that in 10 years, 6 points is not a drastic change, but 1.3 million to 5 million is a drastic change. And so the model that we have done today is probably going to be the most cost efficient. But then once, that's if you set, like if the expectation is 56, then you know that investment is here. Even if you set it at 60, you're almost at this amount at a steady decline. But we could do the scenario 1 and let it degrade to about this point, then do a reconstruction somewhere that meets it because it's already in the failed section, which would bump our system PCI up to something, depending upon the PCI, and then it restarts that curve, or restarts that degradation.
So, Dan, if we let our entire system go to an average of 56, in 10 years, then we're gonna have some major.
That's an extreme example. 56 is not something that we recommend.
For a period of time.
Well, and I'll also say that what things cost today versus 10 years from now is gonna be drastically different.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the huge takeaways for us is like, at what we have currently been budgeting, if we would simply keep that, the impact is, I think, not sustainable, right? Like, we think that that's of concern, both from a PCI score and what would have to get invested in 10 years in order to bring us all back up.
So I think what Dan's really asked for is the system average. That could be a bracketed average. I would like to add a concept to that we also set ourselves a minimum that everything depends on the budget year. So like if something falls into the 4 category, we should focus on that road because we don't want it to go to critical. I know it costs a lot of money to do full road rebuilds, but again, the longer you let that go, the more it costs you, even just because of increased cost, but the more it costs you, the deeper you have to go into the road.
That is very true. And the other thing to keep in mind, whatever consensus we leave here with today, once we go back and do the work to see affordability, try to get some of the information about effectiveness and long-term cost effectiveness. If we say you set it at 70 today, with a plus or minus 5, we come back and you like it, we can keep it. If you don't, we can go back and do it again.
That's
And
the
so-
beauty of the tool.
Yeah, so I guess my question really is, we tier it in like 5, right? Like, it means 75, 70, 65, 60, whatever that, and then the price points of those, if we can, what that investment would look like every year at those prices, at those rates, or at those scores.
We can most certainly, I mean,
Because I think that helps give us a better idea of
Sure.
how much we wanna really put towards this. Because I don't hard to get this one, I don't want to see it lost, I just want to find the smart average of this.
One of the things also to keep in mind, unless it's pointed out, like this, here on the right-hand side of the slide, look, that's the mileage of each category. So right now, we have the majority of our mileage in excellent and a large percentage in good. And so, doing the investment annually per year, well, and we're looking at those numbers of 70, 65, 60, that was you said? 75. So running through those, we can then, if this was split and the majority of our roadways were in failed, the conversation is drastically different. So if the inverse of that chart is true, we're now coming with more of a mission of criticality. Right now, we're definitely in preservation, which is a good place to be. So we can stretch those dollars out, but it is about the right time, the right place, and the right tool. And it's not as, like even the two consensus that we're asking for tonight, there's still hundreds of variables that we have to weigh out annually in order to make sure that we're still in alignment with it. But that helps us get the goals for what to shoot for.
So at least what I'm hearing now is to bring back examples of levels. Does anybody else have anything to add?
So I think the other thing, if I understood what you were talking about, is some examples of roads that are in those categories so that you can understand what that is.
What that, yeah, what is that degradation number?
Yeah.
What does that look like to the roadway?
Certainly. We can bring a follow-up presentation with that information.
Yeah, it might be helpful to send out that information for him so they can actually drive it, because it doesn't really show on.
The pictures aren't gonna be adjusted, I need to go drive it, walk it, whatever,
Okay.
personally.
And it would be nice if the pictures would match what Josh is asking for as far as 70%, 75, or not percent, a rating of 70.
A picture of a 70 or.
Actually matches what they're
65,
presenting to us.
Sure. So I'll find, yes, so I'm hearing, you want sample roadways of the 70, 65, 60.
Yeah.
That way you can drive and pictures of that show here, but samples, you could drive them ahead of time. The scenario of funding to where, we didn't talk about terms, so the whole process was planning a 10-year investment. And so the 10-year goal of that is 3 different ranges. And then we'll run those.
Should be 4, you know, 75, 70, 65, and 60.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. And then pictures of existing ones all in all the categories that we have.
Yeah.
Sure, no problem.
I think it just gives us a better understanding.
Okay, that gives me plenty of consensus for tonight. I did want to invite Benish up to give kind of the summary of kind of the whole process. Basically, just to put a ribbon on it because they were a great tool and teammate for us. And so this is Ed with Benish. Want to introduce him and see if you.
I will say that Edgerton is starting out with a very strong network. It's more cost effective really to maintain a high network PC or a high network or a strong network than it is try to recover a deteriorated network. The more deteriorated it is, and everybody here, I mean, this has been great conversation. This really is I love your example about the grade school grade and all that. I'm gonna use that in the future.
You're on.
But, yeah, thank you. But, it's all, as soon as that network gets down to, as Dan alluded to, a criticality level, it's harder, more cost more per those, treatment methods to bring that back up.
It's also
So-
disruptive.
Right, it is very disruptive. But I will also say that when you look at a street that is, a 60 to a 70 to, it's gonna be hard for the untrained eye really to tell those differences. Driving it won't necessarily tell you because sometimes those distresses are based upon, their severity, their size. There's a lot of factors that go into calculating that actual score. So just be aware of
Yes,
that.
with that, it would be handy to have maybe some bullet points that says, hey, 60 has these issues.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's what I was just.
That would probably
same
help you a
thing,
lot.
yeah. Just give us an idea of how it's scoring it, like, hey, we saw this.
Can you
this,
talk
and
about
this.
LiDAR for just a second about what it does?
LiDAR, well, there's a couple different methods you could use to collect the data. But LiDAR gives you more advanced technology to be able to do some measurements with it, some compliancy to it. It allows you a lot more functionality to be able to use the data to be able to determine what you're looking at. And especially when you get into pavements, being able to tell, you know, rutting versus potholes. With LiDAR technology, you can tell that a lot more. The tool that was used, CityLogix, they drove the streets, they collected that LiDAR data, they collected all of your asset data, your sign data, your pavement markings, you know, pavement distresses, everything. All that data is stored in a LiDAR system that you can extract that at any point in time. So it gives you a lot of functionality to it. It also gives you 360 imagery so you can see what the streets look like. You don't just get a 3D mesh of what it is. You actually get a visual representation.
So bullet points to go with the school, the sample work.
Got it.
Okay.
That might help better in driving.
Might, probably.
This was the intention to have a discussion and questions at this time, but we've had a healthy one, so if there's any further, we'll stand for questions.
Look forward to more information. All right. Item 8, presentation by Burns and McDonald of the concept development report for Dwyer Farm sanitary sewer improvements, site 2 and 3.
So I'm going to invite Burns and
Hang on, Dan.
Yeah, I'm gonna excuse myself from this discussion since I don't want there to be any conflict of interest, so I'm out.
Sorry.
We will come and get you, Mr. Lewis, after the presentation.
Thank you. Easy.
So as Burns McDonald comes forward, we had a project to analyze the impact to the development of Dwyer Farms. And so we have done a study of our existing conditions. I have a map showing the different parts of our existing conditions that I'm going to hand out. And then I'm going to turn it over to Miranda and James.
We like to keep you on your toes.
Miranda Hammers with Burns McDonald.
James Farrell, Burns McDonald.
And today we're here to talk to you about the project that we've been working on, preliminary design for the Dwyer sanitary improvements at sites 2 and 3. And 2 and 3 refers to sites pulled from the 2020 wastewater master plan. So we'll run through the background, talk a little bit about what was evaluated under that preliminary design at site 2, site 3, citywide improvements that were evaluated, and then our overall next steps to move this project into construction. So for background, this is the city's sanitary sewer system as it stands today. There are a handful of lift stations located throughout the system, with the primary lift station serving the residential area as the city lift station, and then you have the Big Bull Creek wastewater treatment plant where everything is treated and then sent to the river, or to the lake. At the city pump station, which is deemed site number 2 from the wastewater master plan, you've got a couple sewer lines feeding into it. You've got an 8 and a 12-inch line serving the entire residential system. And then you've got the city pump station and then the old, what is now inactive lagoon, adjacent to it. When Big Bull Creek was built, that lagoon became inactive and, but still stands today. And then the wastewater treatment plant.
Like up the treatment plant, so just a quick run through your process. Raw wastewater comes into the headworks on the screen. It runs through a screening process and then through a removal process. The screened wastewater moves to a secondary treatment system, an aeration basin where nutrients are removed. The clarification step, clarified effluent runs to a UV reactor where the wastewater is disinfected. The solids from the secondary treatment system are moved to an aerobic digester where pathogens are removed. And then the solids are separated using a centrifuge and decanted is sent back to the plant.
So you have copies of these 3 maps in front of you, and they will be helpful to reference as we go through the presentation. So feel free to interject and ask project. So initially, we were looking into a handful of needs and wants that the city had, and trying to understand and evaluate what the city could actually move forward with based on the budget that they had received from the grant and the SRF funds. So one of the items that Dan and his staff had identified as a need, more so than a want, was the existing screen at the city pump station is a manual screen, and there's a lot of safety concerns with it. It's difficult to operate, difficult to clean, and Mike has indicated, just from a safety perspective, he has concerns every time they have to do it. So we evaluated the cost to replace that with a mechanical screen, and then tie it into the electrical system. And you can see the cost there is $900,000 to $1.2 million. And then the city pump station itself, when it was originally constructed, was designed for a third pump to be installed. There are 2 there currently. With the installation of that third pump, though, we still weren't gonna get to the capacity that was needed based on the evaluation of the wastewater master plan. So by swapping out the impellers in the 2 existing pumps, dropping in that third pump, and then just rebuilding pump number 2. Pump number 1 was already rebuilt previously due to maintenance. But rebuilding pump number 2 while we're doing these improvements and have it already told to swap the impeller would refresh the useful life of that pump, as well as give the additional capacity that's needed. So that all, those 3 components together was $160,000 roughly. And then came the generator. The existing standby generator at the city pump station has capacity to support the 2 existing pumps. With the addition of the third pump, it no longer can have capacity, and per KDHE's requirements, they would need to increase the generator capacity to serve that third pump. So that additional generator was about $153,000. And then we moved on, and on the downstream side of the pump station, looking at what flows are coming through the pump station today. The city just doesn't have a permanent flow meter, and so it was a desire of the city to install or construct a permanent flow meter, which would include a vault, and there would need to be bypass pumping to get that installed, and then ultimately connect back to the state SCADA system so that the city can read what the wastewater flows are coming through that pump station, and have that tied to historian. So the flow meter and the vault and the bypass pumping was about $110,000. And then as we move to the existing collection system feeding into the city pump station, originally in your map you can see that the existing lines are an 8 and a 12 inch, and one of those lines runs under Nelson Street today, and neither one of those has capacity based on the modeling performed under the wastewater master plan. And as development continues to come into and feed through those lines, that capacity concern is elevated. So the proposal is to replace the manholes and then increase the diameter of several pipes feeding into that city pump station to be 30 inch. So that was about $135,000. And then the wet weather capacity at the pump station during a rain event, you still have your base sanitary sewer flows, but there's inflow and infiltration that's coming into the system that causes a peak in the sanitary sewer system, and the city pump station just doesn't have the capacity to convey that over to the treatment plant, as well as the treatment plant doesn't have the capacity during those rain events to treat it right away. So we evaluated either installing a wet weather holding tank or repurposing the old lagoon that's already graded and use that for wet weather storage holding. We would need to clear the vegetation that's grown up, install some electrical controls. So although we have the grade to do a gravity in, gravity out configuration, which is ideal and much more cost effective, you still need to have some electrical controls and gates to operate it. So tying that into the existing SCADA system and electrical system. And all of that came out to about $680,000. And then at the wastewater treatment plant, which is deemed site number 3, there were a handful of equipment items identified during the wastewater master plan that had just reached their useful life. It's not abnormal that they need replaced, and so looping those into this project desired, if possible. There's also some items that we'll go through that were more driven by issues that have occurred or safety concerns, like I said, Mike had with the mechanical screen. So the grit removal pump was one of those items that had just reached its useful life and needs replaced. It's proposed to get replaced in kind for $28,000. The platform around the motor at the headworks, this was one of those items that the city had identified would be nice to incorporate. It's difficult to maintain this motor and do any operation. This platform it's elevated 10 to 15 feet above grade, and you can see from the picture that just to get to that motor, you're reaching over the rail and you don't really have access. So building a platform around that motor would allow the city staff to be able to maintain it much more easy and just safer. And so that was about $41,000. The blowers have had ongoing maintenance needs over time. This is something that Mike has attempted to service in-house and has done well up to this point, but having a spare parts kit on hand would be beneficial for the city, so they're not waiting on the manufacturer to deliver them. But also, they take unique tools to service these blowers that the city doesn't necessarily have on hand. So we've looked into a rehab agreement with the manufacturer and what the cost would be for the labor and the trips to perform the maintenance on the blowers, and that totaled $137,000.
Miranda, if I might, one thing to note, one of the reasons why we went to that extent to find a solution is just the criticality of the air in the system. And so with these blowers not being on the shelf at your nearby blower store, for them to be down with that kind of time starts to impact the actual viability of the plant. And so this is the mechanism that gets us up and running the fastest. I think it's the fastest versus having a full blower on hand. Redundancy is designed in the system, and so we didn't feel like the purchase of a whole other one to sit on the shelf and just degrade over time, where this was the best solution because it's such a high critical part of the plant operation.
We did evaluate like a whole new blower system. Is there a better blower system that exists today than it did when the plant was built? And ultimately the decision was that no, this blower manufacturer and the blowers that are there today are still the best option for the plant. It's just having access to repair them in a timely fashion. The chemical feed pumps are, again, useful life items. They've reached that duration and are due for replacing in kind. So $48,000 for those repairs or replacements. The UV disinfection system has had some maintenance issues with the wipers, and again, we evaluated other options given the space and the available working room within the buildings. We felt like the existing UV system was the best option. Allowing the city to have that wiper repair kit on hand will allow them to repair them and not wait on shipping and ordering. Okay. And then at the plant, we've got the UPS, the ATS, and the surge protective devices. So these are all related to the electrical system and keeping the system functioning if power goes down, ultimately. And so we did some testing and sent our electrical engineers out several times to look at them, and ultimately it was determined that an APC technician is needed to come out and really evaluate, like the batteries are working, they're connected to the electrical power, so there's something in the switchover that is causing them to not operate when the power goes down. So we've got a handful, $25,000 for the technician to come out, and then the surge protective devices, those have just reached their useful life and are due for replacement. And then during our evaluation and in our review of the wastewater master plan, it was noted that the wall-mounted air conditioner unit and the electric unit heater are no longer functioning, and so as part of this project, it was we wanted to put a cost together for what it would require to replace those and get those operational again.
So they're not working now.
They are not working today. evaluated. One was the radio system reliability. Currently, it's a radio communication, so you think radio towers, and they were having some interruptions within communication to a couple different locations. And so we did a limited physical path study and found out that the county line coax cable is just falling apart and needs replaced at the county line tank, and the 207th Street control valve is unfortunately now blocked by trees. So either tree trimming or raising the antenna was the proposed option. Ultimately, raising the antenna is going to be the most reliable source to maintaining that connectivity in the future. We did evaluate flipping over to a cellular communication service, but those have ongoing monthly fees, and you'll see the cost for those in the breakdown at the end. But the decision was made to, or the decision was to prefer to stick with the radio system at $135,000. And then the SCADA system, which is what makes the plant operate, makes the pump station in the plant talk, and so Mike and Dan can see what's going on from a remote standpoint, is currently a one-man shop that runs their SCADA system, and there were concerns that ongoing service of the SCADA software and the SCADA system were gonna become more challenging over time. Also, the question arose, is this the most effective SCADA system for us today? When the plant was built and they implemented the SCADA system, it made sense at that time, but is there more advanced technology that makes is a better option? And so we evaluated 4 different SCADA systems. Each SCADA software would have an upfront cost. The 2 Aviva options are much lower because that's what the city currently has, so there's not a huge build out and upfront cost associated with those. VT SCADA and Ignition were the 2 new options that we looked at. And then they each have a reoccurring annual cost there as well. So what's next? We've put together this menu of prices and all the options that we evaluated, and had some preliminary discussions with Beth and Dan on what would fit within the budget that was allocated. So the items in red are, or highlighted in red, are the items that Beth and Dan would prefer to move forward with into final design based on the need and the safety concerns. And still allowing the city to stay within that SRF budget and grant funds that were allocated for the project.
That, on the items that are not selected, that doesn't mean we're not doing them, that just means we get to plan them out and do them at a staff level. That's the right time, the right amount of available budget, in order to keep the operation going. Like you'll see that the cellular network of 40,000, that is one that we just opted, that cellular is not the option today that we're recommending, but it is listed here. But the rest of those, we have to figure out how to prioritize those and get those fall within the budget.
Can I intervene something?
Yes.
This might not have anything to do with, I know maintenance basically is based on the amount of flow. So, you know, the more flow you have, the quicker you're gonna need maintenance. Notice on this first map, we don't have anything for a lot of
Oh, so at the time of this study, wire farms had not been built?
Well, but my point is, what are there 80 houses out there or more now? I don't know for sure how many, but there's quite a bit more coming in from that. How is that going to affect the need for the maintenance?
So
You see what
that-
I'm saying?
Yes, so basically, did the need from Dwyer Farms cause
Well, no,
any
no,
of
is
this
it
need?
gonna cause more need, a quicker need for the greenhouse?
So it was the very reason to say we needed to look and study for the purpose of this project. So because of the anticipation of flow, we said, all right, now we're gonna have roughly this much. What does that mean for the rest of my system? What that answer is this document. And so this is in order to handle and respond
You're
to,
taking that
yes,
into consideration.
it is a very
I know
costly
that
project.
Dwyer in totality, not just Dwyer 80 homes today,
Right,
Dwyer in
right.
totality.
It's growing, I guess, it's pretty rapid, It's just, and I know this sewer main when it comes to the, when it comes to the lift station, the old sewer, I mean, it was minimal size years ago,
Yeah.
so,
Yes.
yeah, I know it hasn't changed, so I.
Yeah, I mean, to that, though, the Wire Farms uses the Sunflower Ridge Sewer Benefit District. So it's coming in on that other line. So,
Yeah, here.
Yeah.
yes,
That's right.
so
Okay,
all
yeah,
this,
it's
all
still-
this ties
it's still-
together.
It's still going through the lift station.
Correct.
And coming
Correct.
over. It's still, yeah.
Yeah,
My
and-
concern was, had it been considered with the maintenance plan?
Yes.
The extra, yeah.
And this is a maintenance slash upgrade plan, I'd say?
It's definitely both maintenance and upgrade. Some of it is aged out, some of it's going to be undersized now because of flow, so it is both.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, so, and the funding sources for this have already been identified as grant money and RHID from the fire.
Right, so as a reminder, you have the grant that we received from Congresswoman Therese David's office. And then we have, the city applied for the KDHE SRF loan, but that gets paid back through the RHAD dollars that is generated from Dwyer Farms. Right. So it is not from like general utility bills from the existing sanitary sewer customers. That is not how it gets paid. It is done through the new development at RHAD.
What was the amount of the grant?
Just shy of $1 million.
I also wanted to throw in, part of what we're looking towards as we move forward with this project is how, the city, some of these items don't need Burns McDonald to design and put out a specification. The replacement in-kind items. And so how can we leverage the SRF funds and the grant funding without going out for competitive bidding? And just letting the city self-procure those items and install them to save funds.
Different kind of competitive bidding. Like, the city staff would be making sure that they're bidding to make sure that that replacement pump is not necessarily single source, right? If I, right?
Yes.
But doesn't necessarily need an engineer to put together plans that then goes out to public bid with no, yeah. So you don't have to pay engineering fees for us to just go out and buy a new pump.
If I'm replacing pump in kind, I don't need the design, so I can just go get the in kind bid out competitive.
Yeah, we already have this thing.
Yes.
And so there's some of the scope that is the next part of the project is going, because right now this was a preliminary design scope. The next step is final design for the EQ basin and various components. Some of that is their assistance to help us draw like paperwork in order to get RFPs for some of the work, like I think it's the radio replacements. Some of those is just help doing the procurement in order to get the paperwork to send out for the people that put the bid on, and then we procure after that. And so it's various levels, but the primary focus of the next steps with Burns and McDonald is the design scope for that EQ basin and several of those other components that are in those city government bid.
I would say the EQ basin, the collection system improvements, the mechanical screen, flow meter and valve, some of those items that require multidisciplinary effort to get them together. So what, leading into that, what do the next steps look like? So determining what actually gets included in that final design scope that Burns and McDonald's gonna actually design, or how, what we're gonna help support, like Dan mentioned, from developing an RFP or reviewing bids, and then preparing that final design scope and fee for city council approval. That has not happened yet, and we're looking to come back in a near council meeting to do that. And then we would complete the final design and bid out the project and get the construction rolling on those improvements. That. Are there any questions?
I actually don't have it right now.
No, because that would probably be more than what we talked about. I just wonder if you had any speculation how much it would cost. We really don't have that. Because she wrote them.
We had, yeah, so those were, like, our in-house construction team helped pull together all of those estimates, so, and they include a little bit of contingency, just because we're at the preliminary design phase. Dan, I don't know if you remember off the top of your head what the total of everything was. I want to say it was around 2.5 to 3 million. We were trying to stay well under.
They're all separate.
Yeah.
In totality, the project for Dwyer sites 1, 2, and 3 was $5 million. Swipe, one, for everything. One was when we extended the trunk main in order to get like what sewer, didn't hear about site 1 today. So then this is sites 2 and sites 3, which was all related to Dwyer coming online, and what did we need to do from a wastewater perspective.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I don't know.
Item 9 is consider a professional services agreement between the City of Edgerton and HDR Engineering, Inc. for the City of Edgerton Safety Action Plan. That's the word.
Good afternoon, y'all. So in March, the City of Edison issued an RFQ seeking engineering teams with expertise in safety action plans for development of our own comprehensive safety action plan utilizing the SS40 grant we were awarded from the US DOT. So that includes analysis of a minimum of 5 years of fatal and serious injury crash data, development of a high injury network and high risk network, identification of a safe system, identification of safe system countermeasures, public and stakeholder engagement, and then development of a list of prioritized safety projects and strategies. So this CSAP will give us a roadmap to improve safety in our entire road system, right? So it'll prioritize projects to reduce fatal and serious injury crashes and support the SS40 implementation grant applications in the future. So the statement of qualifications were due on April 16th. We had many interviews with a lot of great teams. The selection committee recommends HDR Engineering as the best and most qualified team for the project. The selection committee recommends this team based on their existing experience providing these services to municipalities, both of similar size and larger populations. HDR will be partnering with WSP, who will lead the safety data analysis, and Confluence, who will lead the public engagement. So enclosed is the professional services agreement between the City of Edison and HDR. The professional service agreement has been executed by HDR, and certificates of insurance have been provided. The agreement was pending final approval from the city attorney and insurance representative, though that has since been approved. So the total eligible cost identified in the executed SS40 grant agreement is $275,000, which includes $10,000 of in-kind staff time that's provided from the city. And the funding source for the project is the US DOT SS40 federal grant for $220,000 and the Build Kansas Match Fund administered through Mark for $45,000. The agreement with HDR is for $265,000 funded entirely by the SS40 federal grant and Build Kansas state match. The only direct city cost is the in-kind staff time match up to $10,000. So the recommendation is to approve the PSA between the City of Edison and HDR Engineering.
Questions, comments?
There's a question I had earlier, it was explained to me, but I'd like to hear from you, Rod. What's the benefit?
Right, so the benefit is gonna be kind of twofold, right? Number one, it gets us in line for a lot of external dollars, right? When people see the word safety at the top of a grant application, they see that we're taking into account serious accidents or serious near misses in our community. Those are gonna elevate to the top. So as far as future funding applications and future dollars, that's the number one. The second one is we're really making an investment not only when, anytime we do a street project anywhere, it could be a mill and overlay, it could be a reconstruction, it could be anything, but every time we touch a road, we're gonna be doing it with these principles in mind. Elevating those safety standards, so that way, every time we touch a sidewalk, every time we touch an ADA ramp, anytime we go anywhere in town, those safety principles will be implemented. So we're gonna have basically a roadmap to follow to get us to zero, the road to zero, in terms of not roadway, but in traffic accidents and safety.
That's why you're.
Of course. No,
I
you're
just thought
totally good.
everybody else might like to hear that.
Of course.
Is there any questions? Comments?
I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second to approve agenda item number 9. Roll call.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Longmaker.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.
participation in the Stormwater Management Advisory Council's SMAC, Watershed Board Organization. Dan?
Good evening. So in early 2020, Johnson County invited the city of Edgerton to participate in the Stormwater Management Advisory Council, which is known as SMAC. This program was revised to be based on a watershed model, focusing more on the impact to a watershed versus a typical city boundary. At that time, the city elected not to participate in the program. Each watershed within Johnson County has an organization created to prioritize and review requests for projects. But since that time, several of the initial hurdles to participation have been resolved, including the assessment of our own infrastructure with our city hasn't completed the Stormwater Master Plan. The Stormwater Master Plan identified SMAC as an additional category of county dollars available for participating communities. With these hurdles removed and additional funding opportunities identified, staff has a recommendation, but before we get to that, I want to invite Heather up with Johnson County. She has a summary of what the SMAC program is for the county.
Thanks, Dan. Good evening.
It's progressive.
Yeah.
Actually, for you guys.
Okay, perfect. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Heather Schmidt, the program manager with the Stormwater Management Program, and I'm gonna just give a really quick overview of what the program is and what we do. First, to start with the funding. The program is funded by a 1% sales tax that is collected across Johnson County and dedicated to the use of stormwater management only. That tax generates about $24 million annually. County staff work with the cities and the watershed organizations to develop programs and prioritize projects for the program expenditures, and that is presented to the Stormwater Management Advisory Council every year, or SMAC, as we like to call it. SMAC reviews and recommends the expenditures, and then those are recommended to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval. For program participation, cities are organized into watershed organizations. You see we have 6 of them. And this facilitates coordination on the watershed level, but the cities still develop, submit, and manage their own projects. All projects are eligible for a 50-50 cost share with the county and the city. The funding opportunities are for storm sewer system management. This is a program that allows the cities to inspect their stormwater systems and assess the condition of them. And then if you find that you have pipes and structures with a moderate to high risk of failure, there's a cost share for an in-kind replacement. Also, we do a flood risk reduction projects, which are engineered solutions to reduce flooding for buildings or streets. There's water quality improvement project funding available. And then finally, we have the Contain the Rain program, which is really geared towards the city residents. And this is where we fund the city to partner with your residents to put stormwater practices that they can put in at their own homes, like rain barrels and rain gardens. They get a 50% rebate from the city when they do that. And that's all I have. I'm going to turn it back over to Dan, but we're really looking forward to working with the city on stormwater needs.
So at this time, we request City Council approve an agreement between the City of Edgerton and Johnson County for the city to join SMAC in the Watershed 4 organization. This participation will allow the city to apply for various categories we just heard, funding, and will provide the city with assistance in meeting some of its state mandated stormwater management requirements. It encloses a draft agreement. It is the same agreement that was done back in 2020 and has been approved by our city attorney. And there are no costs associated with participation within the Watershed 4 organization. Only costs are when we then submit projects. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions or comments? I'll make a motion that we approve. Motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Longrecker?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Connors? Motion is carried 3-0.
All right. Item 11 is consider creation of a new capital improvement project, City Hall sound system, and authorize a project budget
the opening of the green space in 2025, this space that we use for our city council meetings was often used for not only city meetings, but it was also available for the public to rent for things like birthdays, weddings, and holiday gatherings. Now, we are using this space generally only for official city meetings or functions, such as city council and planning commission. We also use it for municipal court and other official meetings as necessary. Mayor Roberts requested staff bring forward for city council to consider a new capital improvement project that would add a sound system to City Hall. This project would include the purchase and installation of a fixed audio system from a professional audiovisual firm, as well as electrical, acoustical, and structural upgrades to the building in support of the audio system. These would include items like a dedicated outlet for the sound system, replacing ceiling tiles, adding acoustical panels to the walls, and necessary IT network changes. Staff recommends a total project budget of $37,000 and funding the cost of the project from the unencumbered fund balance in the general fund. There are sufficient unencumbered funds available for this project. If this project is authorized and funded by you tonight, staff will then request approval for the sound system in our following agenda item. Any questions?
Questions?
How much of that 37,000 goes into just repairing or replacing stuff like the ceiling panels, not just the sound system?
Approximately $3,000 to $4,000.
Of the 37 goes into the actual preparation for the sound system?
Correct.
Where did the number come from?
We got bids from several companies, professional audio-visual firms, brought them into the space, had them evaluate the needs after we explained what we do with the space. And they gave us a bid of, you'll see in the next agenda item, $32,000 to $36,000. And then we also contacted our IT firm as well as electricians to determine the additional cost for the entire structure. There's also a 10% contingency included in there as well.
But I guess my question is, after what we heard earlier today about sound system, I don't know anything about it. I'll be the first to admit. A lot of that is stuff like the electrical and stuff like that. It's not really the sound system, it's just making the sound system. Is that?
Most of the $32,000 is the equipment as well as the installation costs, the professional labor to actually have it installed.
So it's not just the sound system, it's the actual putting the sound system together.
Correct.
When we ask for bids, do we give them an idea of like, hey, here's like the gold standard, here's like the middle ground, here's kind of like budget-friendly version?
I asked for, here's what we do with the space, and here's how it needs to also be functional for staff, because, like, we could have, for instance, done wired mics, but then there would be cords all over the floor. So we talked about that. We also addressed, like, making sure that the functionality was consistent at all times. I didn't want audio dropping in and out. And making sure that you all had control of your mic, so you could mute yourselves or you could turn it on so that there wasn't additional extra. One of the solutions that the companies had suggested was ceiling mics that would hang down, which my concern with some of the ambient noise from like the air conditioner and the water fountain, would that be picked up as well, and then just made worse. So the solutions that they came up with were the individual mics.
So I think I have the same question. I'm glad we're doing this, but the expense. I asked my neighbor, who admittedly does this on the side, he gave me an itemized list for $8,800, which include video recordings also. Are we sure about our bids?
I contacted 3 professional firms and had them come out, and I told them what we wanted to do.
I think one of the other concerns, I felt, in that experience is, we have in the past procured just simply pieces of equipment. So in instances where we want to have a microphone used perhaps at Mayor's Christmas tree or something like that, where we have secured individual pieces of equipment rather than asking a professional firm to come out and do that. And we have had we have had a lot of concerns about the ability to do that because we are not AV experts. Certainly if governing body has expectations or has different expectations about how AV happens in this space, we're happy to go back and do it. But I think the other piece is we wanted to set the room up for success. If in the future you want to do different things than simply just have microphones. As a reminder, this only includes microphones and speakers. If it is something in the future where you're gonna add on to that, what that system's capability is, I think the fixed system, from what the professional firms had told us, this is their recommendation. Certainly if you all would like to select a budget, we can certainly go back and get quotes for what a budget, a different budget number would be. Happy to bring that back.
Well, I just know, like I said, I don't know that much about this kind of thing, but what you said about like the air conditioning and things like that can affect the microphone in a way that's, irritating to the people here or to us. We can't hear things, like we should. So I know that that's got to be taken into consideration by these three companies, because they were pretty close to the same price.
They were very similar.
Yeah. So three companies saying the same things, kind of, well, they know something that I don't. That's what you do that.
Say, probably, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago, city council actually had microphones on the tables that rarely got used because every time someone touched the table, it went boom in the room. The mic or the speakers hung off of the columns.
Started squealing.
Sure, we had speakers and mics at the time. It just wasn't functional. So, I mean, I don't know. I would say Beth's correct. If we want to set a budget or if we want to, look at something else, then we should bring that to the table. So is there direction?
What does setting a budget mean? I mean, we already got bids.
So there's two items on your agenda today, right? So there's the actual creation of a project at 37, and then at 37,000, and then there's the bid, the recommended low bid that we've received for the actual labor installation, the system itself, those sorts of things. That is 32.7. If city council would prefer that we bring back a scope of work that is some number, 15,000, 10,000, 8,000, happy to do that. If you all want to set what that is, then we can bring you what is available for that number, and compare the scopes in that for you. So, because we are not AV experts, when Kara met with the firms, what she said is, here's the kind of meetings that we have, here's the concerns that have been expressed. We want to make sure people can hear each other, that the ambient noise, again, between the drinking fountain and the AC in this very historic building, it gets a little bit challenging. So, but again, if you all want something, we're happy to bring back whatever.
Yeah, I don't want to shoot ourselves in the foot, but if you feel, I mean, to me, having the microphones is probably the most important thing. The expense is secondary, but if you feel comfortable with the bids you receive, I would be for it.
I think we will get a quality product, and I think it would be expandable in the future, such as do additional audio-visual solutions in this space.
I make a motion to approve.
So that's a motion to approve the authorization of a project budget of $37,000. Is there a second?
Correct.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Longnecker.
Aye.
Mr. Connors.
Aye.
Motion is carried 3-0.
Okay, item 12 is consider a retail sales agreement with Forte for the purchase of a sound system for City Hall, an amount of $32,712.80. Garrett?
So city staff did contact 3 companies for quotes. We all had them out to the space. They all evaluated the space. We received all 3 quotes back. Forte came in at $32,712.80. AD Solutions was our second lowest bid at $36,558. And KCAV was at $36,993. Staff recommends the lowest quote from Forte in the amount of $32,712.80. This system would include 9 individual wireless microphones for everyone at the dais and a microphone on this podium as well. The quote includes ceiling speakers as well as a control system for the audio signals and an equipment rack in the IT storage closet. The vendor will also provide training to city staff so that we can actually operate the equipment. It does not include any acoustical treatment necessary in the room nor any electrical or software licensing. But like I said, we have gotten quotes from both our IT vendor and an electrician to actually make those upgrades as well. It would all be within that project budget. In the $37,000.
Okay. Questions or comments?
What would be the expected install date?
As soon as we can get on their schedule.
So that's a motion to approve Forte, or, the motion is approved to bid item number 12. And seconded, roll call.
Mr. Longmaker? Mr. Lewis? Mr. Connell? Motion is carried 3-0.
Okay. On item 13, which is public hearing for resolution number 082726A to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate. Have a presentation first, sir? Oh, yeah, can we have, what do you think, 5 minutes?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're recessing, is that what you're saying, for 5 minutes?
Yeah. No, this is the project. We made it. No, we made it.
Sorry, it's funny. 'Cause it's obvious.
After 20 years, I'm working.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, the city offices are in here, but they also have city offices in 3 other buildings.
My sister, my daughter sent me a picture of
And they put it in the community center in February of 25. This whole team,
now,
planning commission, the city council.
since I've lived here in Edgerton.
That's why I said I would.
No, doesn't he?
The baby was. Don't go by. I'll get more years. So, you're busy going all over. You pick the time. It's totally up to you. So you just call me. We have each other's number.
starting at 9 something.
And it would actually be better for me, for both of us. Instead of steel, and it would take all the time.
Thank you. I forgot about the bacon.
There you go. I think that would be better.
The property taxes have to go up so that they can, you know, sue the citizens. Also, they're gonna pay the citizens.
Oh, that's.
Oh, no, you're sitting in the seat that is absolutely, go ahead, get frozen.
Yeah, if we just meet by private, we won't be interrupted.
And if we have to, our property taxes have to go up. Even though the data centers will bring a ton of money.
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, Cedar Mobile brought us a ton of money, and data centers will bring a ton of money, but our property taxes.
Well, if you see anything over there, it's not true. Let me know. The opposite, if someone said something about me, that's fine.
Call us back in session. So we're going back to item 13, which is public hearing for resolution number 082726 to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate. Presentation.
Just some quick comments before we get to the hearing part. In 2021, the legislature made significant changes to the tax law, as we've discussed in our budget work session, that now focuses on the revenue neutral rate. The R&R is the mill rate that would generate the same amount of property tax revenue in the current year as the previous year, based on this year's assessed valuation. KSA 792988 is the statute that establishes the process for Kansas taxing subdivisions to notify the public and hold a hearing if they plan to exceed the R&R for property taxes. That statute does not provide for any adjustments to the R&R to capture economic growth, issuance of debt, or any errors by the county in the assessed valuation numbers. At the budget work session on July 9th, council gave consensus to keep the mill rate the same as the mill rate for the 2026 budget, which was 29.592, and increase the residential property tax rebate from 10% to 40%. The property tax amount included in the 2027 general fund budget was updated to reflect that direction. The city is required to hold an R&R public hearing and pass a resolution during that hearing setting the mill rate to be used for the 2027 budget. The notice of this public hearing was published in the Johnson County Post on August 3rd, 2026, and on the city's website as required by the statute.
Okay. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to address city council tonight? Please step forward and state your name and address for the record. No one? Oh.
Bayamo Falls, 516 West 4th Street, Edgerton, Kansas. Now, after all this spending and budget stuff that you want to do, are you really going to sit there and look us in the eye and hit us with a tax increase just after the county did? This happened last year. Come on, give us a break. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Kim 2705 West Marywood Lane. I have to agree, you know, and to an extent, I understand, tax increases happen. Prices go up.
but a tax increase that large, when we keep being told that, oh, the growth to the city, the intermodal, the data center, that's gonna bring in funds so that you don't have to pay. But yet, we're going up to a 41% tax increase. It's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Thank you. Anybody else? Last chance. All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing.
Nope.
Oh, no, we can't. State law says I can't close the public hearing. We have to vote during the public hearing. This is the only time that you have to do that.
That is correct.
Yeah, which is interesting. Good catch, yes, very good catch. That's why it's a 13A. So 13A is consider resolution number 082726A of the city of Edgerton, Kansas, to levy a property tax rate exceeding the revenue neutral rate. So questions or comments from council? None? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
So that's a motion to approve agenda item 13A.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Longenecker.
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Connors.
Nay.
Motion is carried 2-1.
Okay. Item 14, public hearing for the 2027 recommended budget. Presentation?
So we, as Karen mentioned, we had held our budget work session earlier this summer. And this is just a quick summary as we head into that packet in its totality is included in your packet tonight. And includes a couple of sections that were highlighted from the changes that were made based on that work session. So just wanted to hit a few things tonight. Here I am telling people how to make this thing work and I don't have it. There we go. So just as a reminder, really the foundational priorities that we've included and based the budget on, based on direction from City Council, really focus around community, fiscal stewardship, and family. The green, related to that, the connections within the community are one of those biggest keys. The green space, the budget as proposed, continues funding for this crucial community
Can
focused
you guys hold it
building.
down so we can hear? Thank you.
Continues funding for this crucial community-focused building, which had over 38,000 visits in its first year. And included in the 2027 budget, it increased programming for this space and the area around it, including events and other programming, and then also sports and educational program options. Related to that community, as you can see in the pictures from the 3rd of July events are what bring us together. Those local events that are included in this budget continue supports for our community events, in particular the summer block party, summer kickoff block party, the new Motors and Monsters car show, which is coming up, our first one in October of this year, and our 3rd of July community picnic and fireworks show. It does include a new event for this year, which is which would be a bike safety rodeo, helping our youngest citizens in Edgerton know how to bike safely, as we know many of them do that to Edgerton Elementary. Related to fiscal stewardship, the diversification related to what Edgerton has been working towards. Diversifying that tax base has allowed us to make strong investments into the community without relying solely on property taxes. In 2027, there are 3 new buildings at LPKC that come fully onto the tax rolls. Council policy is to fully capture those dollars, which means that the budget is not revenue neutral. The fiscal 2027 budget includes a flat mill rate of 29.952, which was just included in the resolution that you all had just before us. It is significantly lower than the average of a third-class cities across the state of Kansas. The average for third-class cities in Kansas is 45.624. A little bit about services for the community and how that has changed over time for us. Street maintenance, as you heard tonight in the presentation from the PCI, is really the city has taken a very methodical approach to preventative maintenance for street maintenance over time. And as you heard described describe that very first piece we called the March to Zero that occurred between 2014 and 2019, where we really worked to touch with some kind of maintenance service every road in town, and then really have been working with good data to work towards that PCI score, which I think you can tell in the growth from when we did the PCI in 2020 to 2025 has increased. Park maintenance, daily inspections, mow grass, pick up trash, repair shelters, and other amenities. I know when I started in this community 15 years ago, that daily inspection piece was not something that occurred. There was definitely a more concentrated effort on that type of service level. Code enforcement, we've added the dedicated code enforcement officer. That was not something that existed before. That was actually done in their spare time by Public Works, who were also doing water main breaks and clearing ice and snow. Policing, as you'll remember, we added our dedicated 40 hours a week community policing officer. We have increased our communications through monthly newsletters, social media. That was something that was new for us. Website updates, those sorts of things. From a finance perspective, those quarterly updates that you see from Ms. Kendall, the 5-year CIP, budgeting forecast, equipment replacement and schedules, those are the kinds of things that didn't exist through that tenure. On the utilities side, we have dedicated staff. The smart meters with leak detection, residents can sign up for leak detection so that you can get alerted wherever you are in the world if you have something where you've had a particular amount of water usage, so that you could try and get that addressed rather than having it welcome you when you come home from vacation. It allows for online bill pay, and then obviously preventative valve exercising program. And then on the inspection side, we now have an in-house building inspector that does residential and some commercial. Again, those are all things that we were contracting for when I first arrived in Edgerton. Again, the 2027 budget, I think it definitely illustrates Edgerton's commitment to supporting our neighbors as family. That budget includes support for some very critical agencies that provide services and take our dollars and leverage them with other dollars in the community. So you have Johnson County Utility Assistance that helps families in need pay utility bills. You have United Community Services that funds agencies that support housing, health, substance abuse, prevention, and other human services. You have Edgerton Community Food Pantry, which supports local families with food needs, and Indigo Thrift, which was the new one this year for supplies for clothing and household goods. The property tax rebate programs, which I think have been really successful. Just as a reminder, these are related to the Edgerton portion of your tax bills. The senior property tax rebates up to 100% of the Edgerton property taxes. In 2027, that max, because it's based on the average home value in Edgerton, would be $833 for seniors over the 65 plus. And then this year, based on the work session, the residential property tax rebate today is 10%, and City Council provided direction to up that to 40% of the Edgerton property tax was rebated for homeowners that live in single-family homes or duplexes in 2027. With the rebate for Edgerton single-family and two-family, that effective mill rate for the owner-occupied residential properties would make us the 4th lowest in Johnson County. A little bit of information about the property tax burden. So in 2011, when I arrived in Edgerton, the residential portion, or the burden on the residential portion of the property taxes was 92%. Again, it was mostly a residential community, and today that is almost flip-flopped, right? The non-residential portion is 81% and the residential portion is 19%. We've seen a significant increase in the sales tax dollars over the time. This chart starts in 2007 and goes till 2025. And then obviously a significant growth in the assessed valuation, really due to that diversification and the addition of non-residential commercial and industrial property. As mentioned, the proposed mill levy for 2027 is 29.592, which is the same as 2026 as directed by City Council from the work session. This is a significant decrease from 2008 when it was at 44.4424. That's my last slide.
Okay, some questions or comments? guess it's really
Public hearing time.
public hearing time. So I'll open the public hearing for the 2027 budget. Is there anybody that wishes to address the council this evening? Seeing none, we're closed to public hearing. Council have any questions or comments?
No, I mean, outside of, how long have I been? I've been on here, I don't know, 10 years or so, and I think so, close to, I don't know, 8 years, I don't know, it's a while, it feels like a while. And we've worked on lowering that mill rate every single year I've been here. I know the R&R thing gets a little sticky for whatever reason, you get labeled, whatever gets labeled, but we really have, like, I honestly feel like we've really tried to continue to reduce the burden that goes on to folks that live here, myself included. So I have the same motivation that maybe some of you guys have. I want to keep seeing that continue to go down. And so I'm super glad to see that. I'm super glad to see that we're doing 40% instead of 10% back to the residents, because that's huge. So my thoughts.
Comments? Yeah, I asked for a little bit of clarity. I've heard a couple times tonight from Donnie, it's about 41% property tax increase. And I would assume most of that increase is actually because of abatements going off. It's not a 41% increase on residential taxes. What is the average in residential taxes increase numbers? Do you remember off the top of your head?
What's the what?
Average for residential?
Like the increase in face value, or the increase, I do not have that number off the top of my head, but the budget item will actually get voted on in 2 weeks, so we'd be happy to bring that back. I assume the 41% is maybe a calculation in the change in the R&R. So, again.
Which is a change in revenue.
Absolutely, and so really the bulk of that change is in order for us to capture the buildings that are coming onto the tax rolls at LPKC. Because the council policy that the governing body set prescribes the amount of appraisal growth that we are allowed to capture from a residential perspective and caps that at the CPI, which I think was 2.7. So again, I recognize that number looks like a large increase, but that is so that we can capture those buildings coming onto the tax rolls, which is why the governing body looked for the tool, which is the single-family and two-family residential rebate. Again, that's not a rebate that's given to the businesses. That is only given to the residents, so that you can get, because you can't tax one type of user and not the other.
Yeah, we get one mill rate.
Correct. We get one mill rate.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Maybe come back in 2 weeks.
Correct.
All right, moving on, report by city administrator.
I have one item for you tonight. It's actually, there are copies of this flyer over at the table over there. So we are super excited to announce a partnership with the Edgerton Amazon Distribution Center. So for those of you that are not aware, it is their 10-year anniversary this year. This summer was 10 years for them. And so in celebration of that, they have sponsored a fall break STEM camp. And so I think it just went live like in the last day or so. And so right now it is open to Edgerton residents only. And you can grab a flyer over there, or you can sign up through our Parks and Rec. But it is 3 days over the fall break that USD 231 gets in October. And so day 1 is Mad Science Countdown to Launch. Then day 2 is marble roller coasters and Lego skyscrapers. Those are a lot of words. And then day 3 actually is a field trip to the zoo. So it goes from like 7:30 to 5:30. So it's the perfect time for kids to, while they're out of school, join Brittany and others to celebrate this. And so we just, STEM is a really big thing for Amazon, and so we're super excited to partner with that. So it is free because of the sponsorship from Amazon. So, but we have limited spots. I think, do you know the number, Kara or Levi? 30.
38, right?
it says 6 to 12. So, excited.
Okay, I don't have a report tonight. I do have a couple of things to add, but I'll do future meeting reminders. September 8th, Planning Commission meeting, September 10th, City Council meeting, September 24th, City Council meeting, October 8th, City Council meeting. I do have two added items, which are both executive sessions. I'll start with the first one, which is consider recessing into executive session pursuant to the attorney-client exception to include city attorney, city administrator for the purpose of consultation with an attorney, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship KSA 7543-19B2 relating to pending litigation for a time of 15 minutes. They'd make us return at 9:25 in this room. Can I have that motion?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Longnecker.
Aye.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas. Motion is carried 3-0.
Did you close the R&R hearing?
It's gonna turn into.
No motions after executive sessions.
That means we're done. No motions after That's because Edgerton's really good about being very clear